Hello YouTube. I want to go back to Lake Baikal because I have something new to let my audience know. For one week in June of 2022, young Russian scientists and engineers had bombarded the bottom of Lake Baikal with special bombs. I found one open source description of the expedition in the popular Russian newspaper. Even the scant information sheds light on Baikal's secrets we know very little about. My conclusion is that there were other goals of the expedition, and by the way, the research there continues. I have no doubts the Russian authorities are concerned about the underwater humanoids since the Soviet times, since 1982. Please see my research in the videos of the Play channel. The link is in the description. So, Grigory Georgievich Akhmanov, Associate Professor of the Geological Faculty of the Moscow State University. He was with this expedition. So, on the ship, he was the head of the floating university class at Baikal. On board the G.U. Vereshchagin, as the ship is called, the scientific ship, he was involved with the 7th expedition to the deepest lake in the world. Oleg Khlistov was the head of the expedition, head of the Laboratory of Geology of Baikal Limnologic Institute. The scientific and much experienced vessel, by the way, belongs to the institute. Limnology is the study of inland aquatic ecosystems. The study of limnology includes aspects of the biological, chemical, physical, and geological characteristics of fresh and saline, natural and man-made bodies of water. On Baikal, to the efforts of Akhmanov and with the support of the Limnological Institute, the floating university class at Baikal appeared. That is a training class on the famous lake. From a geological point of view, the structure of Lake Baikal is no different from the sea. Akhmanov looks at the monitor along which black and yellow curved lines are curling. Here there is everything that is in the oceans: mud volcanoes, landslides when precipitation slides the size of a dozen football fields, deposits of hydrates. But in the Barents Sea, it takes 6 days to go to the point where the research will be conducted, and then 400 meters away from the shore, and then you work. A scientific expedition can fit in 6 to 7 days, and economical. And students get the same experience. Of course, Baikal is much easier. Maybe. Before being on the deck of G.U. Vereshchagin, to be honest, as he said, the Russian journalist from Komsomolskaya Pravda newspaper who described the expedition expected that the famous Baikal, Russia's pride, the largest freshwater lake in the world, has been studied far and wide. But it turned out that this is not so. So biologists have something to do there, and hydrologists and geologists. Here's just one of the enigmas about the solution to which they argued at a lecture in the Vereshchagin cabin. Mikhail Makarov, head of the Laboratory of Limnological Institute, told about it. Now listen careful. There is a strange place 10 kilometers from the shore of Lake Baikal, from where a fountain of bubbles beats out or comes out. It's like a gas output. The spot is only 2 by 2 meters inside, but when the divers went down to figure out what kind of underwater fountain it was, a real windfall got into the camera lenses. Logs piled on top of each other in several layers. How did they end up here? How could the wood sink? And why are there no wooden blockages already 10 meters from the fountain location? And there are many such mysterious stories waiting for the scientific explanation on Lake Baikal. Listen now to this. There are also some suspicious places under the bottom of the lake that the scientists' smart equipment could not listen to. And rainbow oil spills where no one produces hydrocarbons. and the amazing behavior of the local galamyanka fish, 80% consisting of fat, which can only swim up and down, and so 1.5 kilometers from the surface to the very bottom. There's a whole flotilla astern. The ship is crawling at the speed of 4 knots. It's only 7 kilometers per hour. Vereshchagin could have been faster, despite its advanced age. It was built in Kiev at the Leninskaya Kuznetsa shipyard already in 1960, but it cannot go any faster. The equipment won't have time to hear the signal bouncing off the bottom, and the ship can only turn to the left, otherwise the braids that curl astern will fall under the blades. In the wake of the center, a buoy jumps up every 4 minutes, under which a pneumatic cannon is placed. Dink! A discharge is sent into the thickness of the Baikal. On the right is a long transparent tube supported by 3 more buoys, and that's what they call the scythe. It really looks like it, a transparent plastic inside which the wires float in a special liquid. This is a receiver that listens to the waves reflected from the bottom sediments after impact of the cannon. On the left, a red boat, as if assembled by children, cuts through the waves. This is another sparker device. It was invented, by the way, at the Geological Faculty of Moscow State University. In fact, this is a large piezoelectric lighter, which also sends its charge towards the bottom. The chpok, as they call it in Russian, for that term. It has its own adapted scythe, ending with another buoy boat. The GU Vereshchagin ship is like a pulmonologist listening to the depths of Lake Baikal with a stethoscope. Now, sparker and cannon, they shoot after each other's stern. Now, the last time such work was carried out was in 1992. But of course, there was no precise equipment then. That's why a lot of the so-called white spots, or unknown areas, have remained since then. And we're closing them now. Akhmanov waves his palms in turn, showing the sequence of shots to the bottom. A sparker air cannon, a sparker shooting. Probably this is not very modest, but this is accurate. Current research is carried out at the level of the work of scientists of the Academy of Sciences. Although the expedition route was planned and the science ship is navigated by young employees of the UNESCO Moscow State University Educational and Scientific Center for Marine Geology and Geophysics at the Faculty of Geology of Moscow State University. Marina Solovyova and Alexei Kishankov are the young scientists. Every evening in the mess, the scientists discussed the findings made during the day. For example, here's a new mud volcano, here's a strange rift. Here's a description of the expedition from the beginning. The first week is the time of geophysicists. Marina Sokolova prints out a diagram of the lake on which this very complicated route is marked, or itinerary. With the help of that very shooting, we get a map of the sedimentary rocks of a large area of Lake Baikal. On it, we know the places that need to be studied more closely. The second week of the expedition will be dedicated to this. There'll be a change of composition. Students of another detachment will board the ship. Geologists, geochemists, lithologists, hydrogeochemists, and oceanologists. Vereshchagin will return to Lake Baikal, and we will aim to study those areas where anomalies were found, already by using other methods. For example, we'll take soil samples by lowering hollow tubes to the bottom. In each class at Baikal expedition, the guys managed to make important discoveries. I think they're referring to young scientists. A new area of hydrate deposits has already been discovered. These are minerals that can bind gas. They say that over time, methane will be extracted from hydrates rather than drilling the Earth's thickness. Gas reserves in hydrates are significantly larger than those available with the current production technology. a new Hurai sedimentary system was described. Substances at the bottom of the lake, which are carried out by rivers flowing into Baikal. Is the research of the floating university on Lake Baikal still a fundamental science now? That's from the reporter. And the response is, well, it's, how can you say? Exactly, the study of underwater volcanoes, the rules of the behavior of landslides are important for those who are engaged in the development of mineral resources. According to one Moscow State graduate student participant in the expedition, so he gave the response. When a pipeline is laid along the bottom of the sea, you need to understand what kind of soil it lies on, how safe it is. The same applies to the platforms from which mining is carried out. So the benefits of our research are not only theoretical. Well, the Vereshchagin goes into a dual foggy curtain. It's time to go to the pier. The whole week of the expedition on Lake Baikal was sunny weather and minimal waves, which happens here infrequently. On the bridge, they think that they were lucky because they performed the Burhan ceremony correctly. They made offerings to the Buryat gods on time. To do this, it was necessary to dip a finger in a glass and then sprinkle the drops on the 4 cardinal directions, starting with the one where the sun is now. From a scientific point of view, the rite is of course strange, but not everything is known to science, especially on Lake Baikal. That's what the journalist said, and I'll stop here. Today we learned about a rather mundane scientific expedition to Lake Baikal, staffed by young scientists. I'm 100% sure that either there was an undercover military scientist among the group, or he or she was a crew member. Let's say, put it that way. The search for the underwater aliens of Lake Baikal is taken very seriously in Russia. Look at my videos, and by the way, Vladimir Putin went down to the bottom of Lake Baikal. He was very much interested in what's going on there. It's been more than a decade ago, but he did. Again, I brought this story to the audiences outside the USSR and in many languages, but the original source was Colonel Mikhail Steinberg, a brave and capable former Soviet officer who had served in Central Asia and Afghanistan. And I believe he was one of the few high-ranking ethnic Soviet Jews who were not thrown out from the armed forces due to the anti-Semitic policies of the Soviet period. Please see my videos, as I have been building this research since 1990s. Now, shameless researchers and publications have been using my discoveries without attributing the source. This will not stop me from my work, but I remember at least some of them. Anyway, today you also learned about very strange features discovered at the bottom of the lake, like those suspicious places that scientists cannot explain. Well, it's scant information, but we got it. I'm sure there is more, and I'll keep you informed. Also, it is very interesting that there was an expedition or findings done in 1992. That's 10 years after the initial incident, and before my correspondence, by the way, with Mikhail Demidenko. Imagine the Soviet Union is gone in 1992. Russia is engulfed in ruined economy. There are some regional conflicts in the former Soviet republics. People are leaving the country. There's not much work. There's very little money to pay the scientists. But a research expedition is working in the strange waters of the Lake Baikal. Of course, there had been other expeditions in the Soviet times, and I'll discuss them in my future endeavors. Okay? Before I leave, a personal note, if you don't mind. The ship Vereshchagin was built in Kiev at the Leninskaya Kuznetsa shipyard. That's not far from the school I attended in the Podol neighborhood, and I had friends among the students whose fathers worked at that shipyard. Well, those fathers risked their freedom, but they produced guns self-made guns at the shipyard surreptitiously and sold them. They knew who to sell it to. Some kept the guns for the future troubles, because the Soviet Union was a complicated country, and many people at that time remember the crushed 1961 workers' uprising in Novocherkassk against the idiotic socialist policies of Nikita Khrushchev, the lack of food, the arrogant conduct of the Communist Party elites. Well, I saw one of such guns too, and my father was arrested under Khrushchev times for voicing his disagreement with the policies of Khrushchev when it came to food distribution and everything else. It doesn't matter. Someday I'll tell you in a separate video about the realities of life in the Soviet Ukraine. But not a boring lecture, no. 2 examples of what I had seen in the sometimes strange and eerie ancient courtyards and houses of the Podol. And I'll tell more stories about what my father had seen and what he had experienced, because he's been throughout the Soviet Union in his Soviet army days and before, when he was a refugee in World War II and wandered throughout Siberia and the very remote areas and the horrible reality of Stalinist Russia, and his troubles with the Khrushchev regime as well. Well, my dad was an outspoken person, not afraid of those who insulted his people and his friends. And of course, outside of that, I will keep you informed about this Lake Baikal investigation, because as a civilian researcher, I may be the only one that's dedicated fully to finding out what's going on at the bottom of the Lake Baikal ever since I shared this story about underwater aliens many years ago, aliens that had been sighted by Soviet military frogmen. Thank you for your attention. If you can support my research, please see the links in the description to this video. Please tell others. I really appreciate it. Maybe someday I'll find a sponsor too. But before then, please like my channel, please subscribe.